All right. So it looks like we are going to get started. There may be one or two more people that join throughout, but we're going to get started here because we're recording the session. And we're very thankful to have PJ DiPirro here, Buffalo Wealth Partners member of Ameriprise. And he's going to get us started here in just a moment or two. I'm going to kick the thing off the way that we normally do, which is to go over a few different important points for this call. So, first of all, let me welcome all of you. For some names I've seen, it's your first time attending an advisor roundtable. And I'll start by saying welcome to the Advisor Network and welcome to your first Advisor Roundtable. This is truly a peer-to-peer sharing experience. The goal for today is to hear from your peer advisor, hear from PJ about the way he operates his practice, the way he helps his clients. There's nothing to sell here. This is not a call where you're going to leave with anything other than hopefully some actionable items you can take back and impart in your own practice. And we think that's what makes these calls a little bit unique. We'd love your feedback. So afterwards, we will ask you for feedback. We're going to poll the audience. Please share with us. So did the topic resonate with you? How did we do as speakers, presenters, Q&A, etc.? On to Q&A. We are going to use today old-fashioned email communication. A few of you have sent me text messages already asking me, how can we ask questions? The answer is I'd ask all of you to email me. I know there's a few questions in text. I prefer not to do it that way, but we will anyways. So C Healy, Chealy, at theadvisornetwork.org. Again, C Healy at theadvisornetwork.org. Send in your questions. If PJ triggers a question for you, please send it over to me and I'll make sure that I answer it. It's a little bit easier than using the chat to do that, so we prefer to have these done that way. Again, I'll explain in just a second why that might be. So, if there's a question that is sort of not appropriate or there's a question that doesn't make sense, I'm not going to ask those. So I'd like to keep that away from the chat. And again, please ask all questions through email and hopefully not by text message. So the lifeblood of this is the ability for you to listen to PJ, ask PJ your questions. I have a few of them, but I really do want to engage with everybody. So feel free to interact and collaborate how you best see fit. So I'm going to do just a brief introduction as we get started here because I've known PJ for quite some time. The thing that we're looking for when we want to bring on an advisor, and I would open this to anyone here, any advisor, any financial advisor, financial professional from the wealth advisory industry is eligible to be in PJ's seat right now in a sort of a feature on these advisor roundtables. What we ask is to share what you do that you'd be willing to share. So, how do you help your clients? How do you benefit your practice? And at the same time, are you willing to share that with your peers? And if the answer to those two things are yes, then certainly we'd love to potentially have you on. And PJ, both as a friend and someone who's gotten to see PJ in action, he runs a wonderful practice, takes great care of his clients, has a lot of financial planning focus. And today, PJ is going to talk about how they support their clients and how it can help drive growth. And that's the key word that I think a lot of folks are most interested in is how can I work with my clients, give them the best service possible, and allow that to parlay into growth. And I think the best way to do that is to allow PJ to share his wealth of experience and share a bit with you now. So, PJ, without further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Colin, and thanks for having me today. It's always an honor to speak to colleagues. Many of you, looking at the names, I don't think I know anybody. Might recognize you if I saw you, but that's okay. So honored to be here to speak. And Colin, again, thanks for having me. So when we had spoken, we were talking about sharing our ideas and how we kind of run a practice. I love this business because there's no one way to do it. So what I'm going to share with all of you today is what I have found in my 21st year. This I found my niche. I found kind of what works for my practice and my business. Then hopefully some of that can resonate over to you, and you can apply that to however you're doing your business and so forth. So, Colin, should I share my screen and just kind of take them through kind of how this works?
Please
Great.
do.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen in a second. Hopefully this goes off without a hitch. There we go. So can everyone see my the blue screen? So um, I started, like I said, I'm in my 21st year. I'm in a practice with 7 other advisors. There's 8 of us, and we're growing. There's one in training right now. In our Ameriprise bubble, we call those associates AFAs, Associate Financial Advisors. And that's how I started. So I'm a managing partner. Own a third, well, it used to be a third. Now I'm 40% owner with my brother-in-law, Nick. So it truly is a family business. And the way we've worked has kind of evolved over the years. In 2015, I hired a coach uh, to kind of help refresh the way I was looking at my practice and how I wanted to grow my book. And the first thing he did, and I'm sorry, Colin, can you still see my screen? Did it?
Nope, we're good. We're good.
We're good. Okay, cool. Um, First thing he did was he wanted me to come up with my why. And I kind of scratched my head and I said, after paying you a large sum of money, now we're kind of doing a self-reflective exercise. But it was actually the most profound thing I've ever done. And I would encourage all of you to do this as well, is come up and be able to articulate in a very short phrase, why do you do what you do? We all talk about what we do, but my question is, why do I do what I do? And that really resonates with clients. And we came up with this as a team and provide direction, simplify life, and instill confidence. It's in every room in our building. It's on the wall here in my office. I like to point people in the right direction. I like to simplify all the complexities of the financial situation. And when they feel they have their arms around their situation, they feel confident about it. It gives me great satisfaction. So that's my why. That's why I get up and go to work every day. And I lead with that. As I work with clients, I've uncovered a lot of success in trying to uncover what their why is. And again, trying to simplify everything, because we can get lost in statements and markets and everything else. Really focus on why they're here and what's most important to them. So just sharing real quick, this is a deck that I show with all of my new clients and how we apply it. And again, this may or may not resonate with you. You can apply some of this to some of your own business models. I introduced them to the team. So the older gentleman on the upper left, the elder statesman, is my father-in-law, John Miskey. There's myself, younger looking myself, actually. Got to update the picture. And then my brother-in-law, Nick, the guy with the big head. So the three of us we own Buffalo Wealth Partners. We're here. Our affiliation with Ameriprise is we own a franchise through Ameriprise. So I know there's 2 platforms of advisors, employees of Ameriprise and franchisees. We're the franchisees. This is our advisor team. One of them has since just retired. And then our team. And we're adding one more, a gentleman named Rohan. He's graduating from Syracuse University. Delighted to have him come on board as a new advisor. So that's the team. What I found was, and I don't know if anyone has ever had experiences going to the doctor. Have you ever gone to the doctor and they spend the whole time typing? They're not even looking at you in the face. They're just typing notes. You feel disconnected. So one of the things my coach advised me to do is have a second chair. So Megan, up in the upper right here, is our client concierge. She works with me on all my cases. She's in all my meetings. She sits at my desk while I'm at the table with the client. And that's really allowed me to just connect with the client and not have to worry about to-dos and capturing all the minutia in the meeting or the small details, just focusing on what's important with them. And then Megan can connect with them, but also help take notes and make sure that I'm staying on my task. So that's the team. And this is how I explain the process. And this is what we've come up with. Again, we meet a prospect, we meet a new client. Here's kind of our planning approach, and it's all advice based. So the bottom part of the triangle is covering essentials, understanding what the client is going to need, not necessarily what they want, but what they're going to need and what those expenses look like through life expectancy. And then the blue is the fun part, where I try to articulate to the client, what is it that you want? We all work hard our whole life. We all have expenses, but what is it that you want? So we uncover what their lifestyle is and what it likely wants to be, build in some numbers to that, and then project that out through life expectancy. That helps me uncover the why behind their money, which is, all right, what does the portfolio need to do to accomplish those? How much do we have to have accumulated? And then how much income is that going to have to generate in order to sustain their why? And then orange, preparing for the unexpected. My particular niche in my practice is protection planning. So life never goes exactly as planned. So how do we insulate ourselves from perils that life can throw at us to make sure that there's no financial disaster that can derail our plan? And that gets into life insurance. That gets into disability insurance, which also leads into tax diversification and spills over into the top, which I said I like to dumb things down. Who gets your stuff? Leaving a legacy. And I've yet to have a client say, I want the IRS to get involved. So that's where we tie in with CPAs and estate attorneys, and we work in with their estate plan. This encompasses their financial plan, and it's an ongoing process. So I found a lot more success in growing organically when I was able to articulate my why, connect with the client, and then uncover their why and make that the focus of our meetings. So that's how we're getting them in, and that's how we talk about it. And then we've, over the years, developed a process on how to spoil them and keep them here and keep them engaged. So what I like to do is articulate to the client, here's the cost to hire me. Again, I don't know how many out there are selling financial plans. I found it difficult when I first got on board. Financial planners, advisors with Ameriprise are always taught, again, that's our culture, is we are financial planners. And then when you look across the books, and very few advisors sold financial plans per capita. So the day I stopped selling financial plans, I started selling more financial plans. When simply I said the cost to hire me is. So this is our unofficial menu of services that I'm sharing with you. I show a new client to enter in a comprehensive advice relationship. The annual cost starts at $1,500. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's rarely less, but typically it starts at $1,500. And for that, this is what it encompasses. We tend to use Money Guide Pro in our practice. So we load in all of their data points. We kind of show them, again, where are you? Where do you want to be? And are we on track to get there? That's all it is. There's other things we can do and propose. Obviously, generational planning is big in our practice. I would encourage you all, if you're not already doing it, is to focus on the beneficiaries of our clients, because as they're all getting older, who's going to inherit all that wealth? Start diving in and teaching their kids. And typically we offer generational planning at no additional cost for the children of our paid clients. For that, we will meet as often as necessary, particularly in year one, as we're wrapping our arms around their situation. And then what we have encompassed was articulating what that year looks like. We call it a client service model. So meeting one is a data gathering. We're going to gather all your information, all of your statements, kind of get everything under one roof, make sense of it all. I do a value card exercise with all of my clients. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. You start with a deck of pretty much 75, looks like playing cards, and each card has a value on it. It might be religion, it might be safety, it might be security, it might be finance, it might be family, health, whatever it is. You tell them to take those 75 cards, get them down to 20. They go through and they find their 20. Then from there, you tell them to bring it down to 10 and then bring it down to 5. And we document that and put that in their file. I want to know, and I want to customize my advice around what is most important to the client and what drives them. It also helps me understand more about them. It's very unique too. When you meet a client after they've interviewed with a lot of advisors, like, wow, we haven't even gotten to the portfolio yet. Portfolio is easy. We got to figure out what your why is first and get to know you. So I found out that that's been very beneficial, is connecting with them. Then we get into their first plan review, and then we talk about strategize and implementation. So then we set the stage for, I call phase 2 clients. Here's where we always, or early on in my career, I kind of dropped the ball. We all know that honeymoon phase. You get that new client, it's fresh, it's exciting, they're on board, and then they don't respond to meeting requests, they drop off. There's like, oh, I haven't seen so-and-so in a year, I got to reach out to them. So I worked with my team to come up with a system so no child was left behind. We want to make sure we're touching our clients meaningfully, at least quarterly. Doesn't have to be a thorough meeting, but at least a phone call or a meeting. So this is what a 4 meeting a year kind of service model looks like. And there's agendas on those. We can customize those for the client. They get a copy of this, so they know when in the year we're targeting to meet and what each meeting is likely to encompass. Obviously, if something comes up, we'll drop what we're doing and meet with them. And typically after year 1, and we're kind of in a groove, clients like 2 or 3 meetings a year, early, middle, end, maybe 2. One thing that has been extremely beneficial for us from a service standpoint is check-in calls. On our side, they are scheduled in our client CRM, our client management system. On their end, they're not. So they may get a call from me on a Monday or a Friday. To them, might be random. Just say, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, just calling to check in on to see how you're doing. What's new?" And I've got their notes in front of me. They don't know that, but might ask, "Hey, how'd the vacation go? This and that." Those calls have been so beneficial for capturing rollovers, for capturing referrals. To them, you're on the front of their mind. Um, they think the world that you just happen to think of them and check in. And again, we do that periodically. So if I'm meeting someone 2 times a year, they're getting 2 calls from me in the middle of the year, and we're meeting, beginning and end. Incorporate their professionals, meet with their estate attorneys, talk to their CPAs, incorporate that. Be the quarterback amidst all of these other professionals. And then don't forget to provide the ask. And it's, again, I try to make it very simple. Make sure you ask the client, are you happy with the value you're receiving? Is there anything we can do better? And is there anyone you think that could benefit from what we're doing? And what we've done is we've translated that to, we're doing monthly happy hours. We call them BWP happy hours. We schedule them on our events page on our website, where it's a nice non-business setting for people to introduce us to folks. And we started doing those typically from March through October. Uh, anyways, the service model and the check-in calls have been the most impactful for me in our practice. In 2013, I made the decision. Again, we're all different. We can focus on different things. This happened to work for me, that I told myself I was not going to take on any new clients under any circumstance unless they engaged in comprehensive advice, which is paying me for a financial plan, uncovering their why. And then I found that those relationships tend to be stickier. They mean more. If it's just asset based, eventually you're not going to beat the S&P and they're going to go elsewhere. If someone's going to have a sexier portfolio, look, we're all here from different walks, different companies. There's no secret sauce anymore. You want a moderate portfolio? We all have access to the information. You can do that. Where I've connected with folks is on the personal side, where we get into their why and leading with that why. And that's been leading to referrals and a lot of organic growth. I found protection planning without calling it life insurance, uncovering living benefits with life insurance and leading into conversations with clients that way, deepen relationships. That's my passion. And then we help each other amidst there's a lot of synergy in our book. That's why I love what Colin's doing, being able to share, whenever I go to conferences or events like this, the biggest takeaways I have is talking to all of you to find out what's working in your practice. Everything I talked about today, I stole from somebody else and kind of made it my own. So, Kyle, with that, I'm going to shut up for a second. I've been talking to you for a little bit, but
Yeah, and I'm going to use this opportunity. We had some more people that hopped on the call a little later, so I'm going to do a few things. One, remind everyone questions are important. PJ just summed a lot of things up in a few seconds ago when he said the purpose of this is to have that interaction. So what he's presenting today, you should be learning and take from it what you want and then make it your own. So he said that eloquently. That's the goal here. So ask those questions away. And a few of them have already come in, and a couple of topics have hit a little harder than some other ones so far. So remember, C Healy, Chealy at theadvisornetwork.org. I had a text earlier, advisornetwork.com. No, advisornetwork.org. That's why I didn't get your email so far. The first question you said earlier, PJ, a lot of folks are asking three in particular questions related to the associate financial advisor,
yep,
and the questions came three different parts. One was how long is someone kind of in that role? Number two is what are they sort of teaching? And the third question is kind of a summary of that, which is how do they graduate from one to the other, and how in your mind were they ready to do that? So if you wouldn't mind taking that through how someone in your world is an AFA to become an FA.
yeah. So in my world, for me, everyone's a financial advisor. Ameriprise has a term AFA, or Associate Financial Advisor, because from their corporate structure, they see who's the franchisee, and then anyone below the franchisee is the Associate Financial Advisor. So technically, in the eyes of Ameriprise, I'm an AFA.
Yep.
My brother-in-law, Nick, is kind of more of the CEO role because he's got the bigger head. That's how he works. I'm more the people culture guy.
Yeah.
We're partners and we're equals, but I view that an AFA or a junior advisor, let's say, is someone coming in who's going to work alongside a seasoned advisor or see some of my. So, for instance, I use the term I have 185 seats on my bus. Ideally, I want those 185 seats filled with the ideal client. Who's the ideal client? Someone who takes their situation seriously. And at this stage of my career, I want to work with people with more assets. We do not have account minimums. Unfortunately, we've got other advisors to help see a lot of people. So if I'm working with someone and have connected, and let's say they're a great client, maybe they're a great center of influence, but they just don't have $1 million with us. That's okay. Maybe they don't need to see me every time. They're going to see my associate Mike. So once they come in, our advisors here on my team all have experience, and I don't view them as associates. They're colleagues, and they run their own book under the Buffalo Law Partners umbrella. Not every new advisor wants to be a business owner. They don't want to worry about the overhead. So we provide them with the structure and the infrastructure and the business model, so to speak. But they truly run their own book, kind of not in a silo, but that's their own business.
Yep.
So I don't view AFAs as Ameriprise does. We're kind of all advisors. But from our organizational structure, I would say, for instance, this new gentleman, Rohan, who's coming on board, uh, he's going to be the first. They call him a kid. He's a kid. He's a senior in college. He's going to be the first one coming on board as a brand new advisor that we're going to train and kind of bring through the ropes. Kind of what my father-in-law did with me.
I think that was really important what you said in the last sentence, because I think the crux of the question you're starting to get to, and it's a question for all of us, right? I have a few younger advisors in a practice as well. And the challenge is preparing folks these days. And I'll use this as a brief opportunity for a shameless plug. You have this opportunity to have 21 years yourself, and Nick is quite seasoned. Your father-in-law is very seasoned. A lot of folks in that chart that have many years on, sort of under their belts. And so someone can come along and shadow and do that. The challenge these days, in my opinion, is what happens if you don't have that? You get hired into a system and you're a 21, 23-year-old advisor. And you don't know which way to turn, right? You're given an online training program maybe, and you're expected because you have a Series 65 or Series 7 or whatever, however you're affiliated, you should just be out there talking to clients, giving your advice. But you don't have this interaction. You don't have a shadow. You don't have a mentor. And so the advisor network's trying to change that with this idea of a having a peer group, having someone to turn to and say, how are you dealing with this? What are we doing there? So there's my shameless plug, because I do think what you're sharing right now is what somebody wants to learn. What are some of those key things? Now I'll get to the question that I think we're all trying to ask. What are some of those key things you're looking to have Rohan understand before he's running his own meetings? What are some of those things that you can impart with them? I feel like it's very culture oriented, especially with the mission statement you kind of led with.
He has to do this for the right reasons. So before we even considered bringing him on, we got to know him. Look, we're all advisors on the call. This could be a very lucrative business, but if you're not genuine and you're not transparent with the client, you're a flash in the pan. It's going to end in tears. So if you want longevity and you truly want to be successful, I believe in this business, is start off on the right foot and do it for the right reasons. Like I said, there's not one right way to do what we do. We all do things different, and there's not one right or wrong. There's not one better or worse. You have to find your own way. That's irrelevant, but why you're doing it, I think, is more important. So teaching him why we're doing what we're doing and how all the what's accomplish the why, I think, is the most important, if that makes any sense. You can tell who's the blue sky thinker in the practice here. But it's so important for him to come on board and understand, when do you use a cash value life insurance strategy versus a Roth conversion? When do you bring in the estate attorney to talk about trusts? Do you do commission based versus wrap business? Why do you do it? How do you apply all those things? That's why teaching him about relying on the financial plan first and foremost, let that guide your recommendations, because then the needs are going to speak for themselves. So teaching him to identify those needs, the technical things and how to apply those, I think, is the most important, giving him that base. And I think the best way is through osmosis, sitting in my meetings with me, watching the knowledge applied, and then sitting with him, watching him do it
Yep.
to kind of, we've all, anyone have kids and taught them how to ride a bike, you've got that, uh, you get your hand on the back of the seat and you slowly let go. That's where you keep giving them more rope. And then eventually, maybe it's a year, maybe it's two. I think technically we can all learn what to do. Very few of us are very comfortable or successful at being the rainmaker and asking and bringing in new business.
Yep.
And I know in my practice, I'm looking to bring on another one of those who are confident in what they're doing and also comfortable. And I believe if you do it right, you won't have to ask. People are going to tell other people about it.
Yep. There are two questions in here about this. There's actually a few more on another topic, but I got to read them first before I'm gonna just sort of blurt them out. But two people asked this question: your happy hours. And I guess one of the questions was, I'll just kind of combine the two questions. One was, how many folks do you get at your happy hours? And then do you get the same folks all the time at your happy hours? Sounds like there might be a little personal piece in there for some guests that love to come each time for a drink inside of their fee. So maybe if you
Yeah.
want to answer those two to get started.
Yes. This is our second year doing it. I will tell you there's two clients of ours that are going to be at every single one, and they don't bring anyone new. They're the first ones there. They're the last ones to leave because it's free drinks and a couple of apps. Uh, I looked at my brother-in-law and I said, do we disinvite them now? And it's like, you know what? So you're going to have that. We're all going to have those people. I would tell you last year, we averaged probably anywhere from 10 to 15 people per event, not including our team. And there's probably we at least always have a partner there representing us. Most of the time, Nick and I are both there. And probably at least 3 or 4 team members just to mingle and talk. We probably got 10 new clients out of it and probably 40 to 50K worth of GDC out of it. So it justified doing it again. Also, we just thought if Buffalo Well Partners is present in the community, supporting local watering holes, that's not the worst thing either. So we're trying it a second year. We did our first one actually at Frankie Primo's North. We had 22 people show up. We had 10 existing clients. 8 of the 10 were kind of newbies. 2 were the same 2 that show up every month. And there were 8, I think 8 or 9 new prospects that we were introduced to, and 2 have already become clients. So I thought, well, that just paid for the rest of the year for doing them. So, and we had one last year where no one showed up, and they're all sponsored by a wholesaler. So it's not costing us anything.
Yep.
Or I should say it's not costing us for most of it because we pick up depending on how many martinis everyone has. But I would say they've been pretty successful. And worst case, the team's getting together and go out and have a drink together. So
Yep.
I think we're going to continue that going forward. We'll see how it goes this year, but we're averaging probably 10 to 15.
I'm gonna use this as an opportunity for one thing I should have mentioned at the beginning, but there's a lot of folks on here with different backgrounds, different firms, different responsibilities. One of the things that's unique about the advisor network is that because there's so many business types, affiliation types, broker dealers versus RIAs. The important thing is you may hear information, you may get guidance on here that is a way a particular firm allows things to happen. For example, sponsorship, wholesalers, whatnot. You have to look at your compliance, your individuals in your branch, in your complex, your state, any regulatory bodies that oversee, depending on how your business is done. One of the things when you sign up for the network, what we say is you have to follow the applicable folks to yourself, starting with your manager, supervisor, compliance department, etc. So if you have questions on whether or not you can do what we might suggest you do, go ask them first. Make sure you always get that approval. Make sure you understand your own firm and your own industry, depending on if you're broker dealer or RIA rules and regulations around that. So I'll say that once in the middle here, I just want to cover ourselves. It's really up to you to make sure you understand your own compliance and, of course, strictly adhere to it. Uh, I'm going to do this one first because a lot of people have asked questions. You said seats on the bus, and I think that prompted a lot of things here. So, there's about three questions coming there in just a second. By the way, awesome questions. Keep them coming. I'm going to ask this one a little differently. It got into more of investment strategy, and I don't think that was your purpose of trying to deeply get into the investment piece. I think what you kind of said was we do all of this work and then we talk about the investment strategy. So, to paraphrase the question, it's kind of you waited all the way till the end to talk about this. And then the question was essentially, does it diminish the role of investment management in the relationship with the client? And I'll leave it like that. So I'm twisting that question slightly, but I think I kind of know where you might go with this.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've gone back and forth with this. So that deck I showed you is what I show prospects, and there's a reason I bring up the cost to hire us there, and there's a reason I don't want to make my fee the focal point and make it like the crescendo and be almost apologetic about, well, this is what we're going to charge. I'm very confident in the value we bring our clients, and the value I think I provide is not an asset allocation. It's the big plan and the strategy. Now, when we get into investment philosophy, again, starting big picture, three buckets: cash, income, growth. How much goes in each bucket after identifying their financial plan and their needs and their why? We can start filling in those buckets. And then I get into with the clients and talk about, here's how we manage. Let's educate you. Two different types of accounts: brokerage versus managed. Talk about the costs, why one over the other, and where those buckets will fit in those types of accounts. And then obviously I'll educate them on how wrap accounts work, how managed accounts cost. We'll get into that. If you connect with the why piece, the rest is just details. It doesn't really matter about the cost. I just say it doesn't matter, but the value, most of the value I found, again, it's my perspective, is in the relationship and in the why piece. It's uncovering their plan. They'll know they can talk to someone if they lose their job or their kids going to college or someone got sick or someone passed away. We're in the age of AI. I'm amazed at what it can do other than just manipulating pictures of funny things. The amount of information they can get. There's been talk of we've all heard about the robo advisor and so speak. That's great, but when we just went through this first quarter that we had, nothing substitutes picking up the phone and talking someone through their financial plan and identifying, you're fine and here's why. We're not going to deviate from our strategy and here's why. That I think is that's where we earn our stripes, is when we just went through what we're going through, not when everything's good.
Yeah.
So we do. I don't want to devalue the work we do with asset management, because it is important, and that's typically where we make most of our money, right?
Yeah.
But emphasizing the what, I think, is just, for me anyways, is not the focal point.
Yeah, obviously, I like what you said, especially this instilling confidence, maintaining confidence as part of your mantra in the first place. The question, just this was a good one for everybody to understand. The question went deeper into what kind of products to use and other types of
For
things.
sure.
Let's not go there today, and here's why. I think the idea of creating a peer group is that we should be able to reach out to one another and spend that extra time on asking other questions. So that the type of questions we might want to ask offline. So I'd ask those type of questions. We can put that inside the chat within the portal. Direct connection. I'm happy to give you PJ's information, connect the two of you directly to ask it. But if we start getting into what types of products we use, how we use them, I think it's a different style call than today. We might do one on investment management in the future. So I don't want PJ you to have to get into each, how many ETFs, how many mutual funds, where alternatives are appropriate. You mentioned obviously insurance, VAs, if that's a thing. It feels like it's a slippery slope into a tangent that we don't have time to cover today, if that's all right with you.
Sure.
All right. Okay. So like several more came in. This bus situation triggered a few things. So these are, I can't really pull all these together. So I'm going to ask you little bits and pieces, even though they might be close together. They're separate enough to do this. So the first question was really about the quarterly reach out, right? The quarterly communication that you have. And the first part of that was you said you do it for every client. Now, you have a minimum. Does that mean every client is reaching out to every client of every size every quarter? Because that's an incredible number of reach out. I can understand this question saying have somebody that has a $30,000 account and they're getting 4 touch points a year. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'm not touching those clients. My our quote junior advisors, AFAs, whatever you're going to call them,
Yep.
guys just kind of starting. So I said I had 185 seats on my bus. Those seats get touched by me,
Yep.
all 185. Um, there's another gentleman, Mike, in our practice. He's 4 years in. His book is still young. There's those seats I had to offload, and I do that gently with Mike, and we transition. I meet with him with the client, and then he takes over, so they know they're going to work kicked to the curb. They're getting better service because he's been able to give them that time that I can't
Got it.
because I'm only one person. So he's in charge of calling those people quarterly or touching them quarterly. So the advisor, the servicing advisor, you have the team, and then each kind of tranche of clients has a servicing advisor that's uh, responsible for making those touches to those particular clients.
So that is literally a perfect parlay into the second part of the question that came in, which was how many seats on your bus do you rotate each year based on how many new clients you get in? I guess maybe the second part dictates the first
Yep.
part, but on average, how many clients do you offload from your bus?
As many as I have to. So last year was 30. This year was 25, and we're already just starting June. Um, in order to provide the level of service I want to, I can't do it with 300 people. I can't do it for 300. I'm one person and I work hard, but I've got 3 kids who are in sports and I got to be there and I want to be there. Early in my career, I remember my daughter looked at me and got so happy because I was having dinner with them once. She's like, "Oh, daddy's here for dinner." And it hit me right between the eyes. I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I don't want to be absent. So I had to take control, which is why that service model allows me to look at my system and say, how many meetings right now do I have scheduled for each month based on the amount of clients I have?
Yep.
And do I need to start shifting that? And those relate, we look at that and, twice a year to say, all right, the bus is starting to get full. We're running about 195. What 10 do I have to start asking to go to the other bus? And then we start that conversation. So it's constant client segmentation. Look at your clients, know your segments, identify, all right, who's going to need to go somewhere. And then if I know, look, I'd love to be at this point. I have 185 of all gold clients. There's no one I want to send off. Good. Now I'm going to start doing joint prospect meetings with the next advisor to bring them on because we're open for business.
Yeah. I think
That
that le
helps.
it's great, and it leads me to the I'm going to do the next two ones together, right? And part one of it was how do you do it? It sounds like there's a lot of phone calls. You're willing to meet with clients in person, virtual. Where does Zoom? Where do Teams? Where do face to face over the computer come into it? So the question was really, how do you integrate things like Zoom and Teams into this quarterly communication pattern? And then the second piece to that was how much do you how often do you have clients in your office, a better way to do this, for their formal review every year? Once a year, 4 times a year. And do they dictate it or do you?
We both.
Okay.
I give them a preference. Um, we had one client who wanted to meet every other month, and that was simple. I said, "That's good. Your fee went from 3,000 to 10,000, just because we need more time." And it's quickly they're like, "I think we're good with 3." It's like, okay, we're good. So that's one
Yeah.
way. Um, fair but not equal, right? Someone's paying you more, you give them more time. So typically, most clients, I offered it to them to tell them, look, I think at this point, 2 meetings a year is appropriate. How do you feel about it? And most of the time, they're like, yeah, I think that's good because they're getting the regular contact. They know 2 meetings doesn't mean that's all they're going to hear from me. It just means that's when they're physically coming in. Now, those meetings since COVID, more so since COVID, typically it's one visit, one virtual. Um, More of my younger clients are getting more comfortable with virtual, where they live 10 minutes away, but it's easier for them to hop on a meeting and then hang up and then they're home. So they
Yep.
prefer virtual. We've got a lot of out of town clients. So I think we're licensed now in 39 states. So we were doing virtual meetings before COVID because, well, I couldn't fly to everywhere to visit them.
Yep.
So we're kind of doing it that way. It's a mix of in person and virtual. We have I don't know what service model everyone's using, like system. We have Salesforce. Salesforce has something called campaigns where I can send an email where it looks like it's me to you, but it's actually going to 55 people.
Yep.
And it's coming from my personal work email address. There's an oxymoron. My actual business address, not a
Yeah.
marketing address. Um, and that's made it more efficient for me to reach out and just say, hey, wishing everyone a happy 4th of July weekend, stay safe. Uh, little things like that. But when you break it up, it's 3 or 4 check-in calls on a Monday. I meet clients Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. Mondays and Fridays are for these and for internal meetings. Allow me to prep, allow me to follow up,
Yep.
and do business running meetings. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, 9 to 3 are typically my meeting times. And we fill those slots with meetings. I typically will have 4 to 5 meetings a day during those times. And that's working for my 185 seat
Yep.
bus.
Well, and that the last one kind of parlays right into that on the bus. I got another one queued up on a different topic. We probably have room for one or two more questions, so send them in. This has been great questions so far. I'm thrilled. And the question on the last one is, this is actually a really good question. How long do you budget for the time for a client check-in when you're calling to say hello? Because you don't know what they're going to start to talk about, right? So I love this question because if
Yeah,
you put 15 minutes and they're not done talking, you're not going to cut them off.
not at
So how
all.
long do you budget on the calendar for each one of those check-in calls?
So remember, it's not scheduled for them, it's scheduled for me.
Right.
So this happened right around the holidays. Now, most of the time, if I'm calling during business hours on a Monday or Friday, I'm getting voicemails,
Yep.
which is fine. I'll get a text back or a call back saying, hey, got your voicemail. All's good here. Thanks for checking in. Good. They heard from me. No problem. Um, a lot of the calls literally take 5 minutes because it's just a check in. However, in December, I had 2 calls. It took me an hour and a half.
Yeah.
We got into stuff. But guess what? Those 2 calls, we didn't need to meet again in January because that took care of our meeting because we solved what we were going to solve. So it saved me at meeting time in January. So I didn't have to meet with them because we had the call. And I just bumped the other 2 check-in calls to the next Friday because it doesn't matter as long as they're done in that month, that target month. Doesn't matter what day it lands on. That's why I schedule 4 or 5 on a Monday,
Yeah.
on a Friday. And if they get moved, they get moved. That's fine.
I'm going to move away from that. You clarified well though. I think about your time, right? So you've maybe put them 30 minutes apart or 15 minutes apart on the calendar, but that doesn't affect your clients or
Right.
anything else. If you go 30 minutes or 45 minutes, you just make the next call later or the next day,
Yep.
whatever makes sense. Yeah, so that's well done. Um, Somebody here's asking this question. If what advice would you give a younger advisor to help them build credibility? Right? You and I both have almost identical time in. We had different haircuts back at the day, I think, at the time, I'm sure, as we started. And, without having any gray hair and a beard
Yeah.
or the rest of it, you get looked at differently. And it usually starts with lack of credibility. What are some things you'd tell a younger advisor to help them build credibility in a younger part of their career?
So this helps. This was me 20 years ago. I had more hair, and I was the guy who came into the meeting with less gray hair, more hair, and yeah, you're meeting with someone who's 55 years old. You're 30. What do you know, right?
Yeah.
Um, I just told this to Rohan the other day. Find one thing that you're passionate about and get really, really, really good at it. And I think it also helps your mentor to help you build credibility. So, for instance, my father-in-law, I had a passion around insurance. Personally, we had family members who benefited from it and also were the victim of, let's say, not so great advice with some insurance. Um, and it drove me to learn a lot about it and see how it can apply to a client situation. I studied it. I got good at it. My father-in-law would invite me into his meetings with his clients and say, PJ's kind of the expert at this. We're going to let him present on this. So Rohan or Nick, when we get into, let's say we just took on a client, high net worth, we've got a fairly complex portfolio we're getting together. Bond ladders, the whole thing. Nick's coming in that meeting. Rohan's going to come in that meeting and present on that topic. Immediately, Rohan has credibility with those people. So
Yeah.
I would say if you're a young advisor, work with a seasoned advisor, work with them and offer to help them with part of their workload, but have them endorse you
Yeah. Yeah.
as kind of the expert.
Yep. Tee it up to
Get
let
up.
you speak to things that you're good at, you're confident with. And I'd say to that younger advisor, you know, be calm, speak slowly, speak eloquently, but you have to make sure that they have that confidence that
Have
you
to.
know what you're talking about, you're passionate about it, and you're helping them. And then they'll forget your age and they'll just listen to you as a peer, right? As somebody that's giving them quality
Yeah. Again,
advice.
I don't know with compliance, I don't know about recording, but having someone else in your meetings to critique your body language. We don't know we're talking fast. We don't know we have verbal crutches.
Yeah.
Your body language and the way you position yourself and the way you articulate yourself is gonna yeah. You know when someone is
And if
skittish.
And if you
Yeah,
don't have that, then again, I'll say find your peer group, find somebody else that's a younger advisor within the advisor network, find a time with them and say, hey, let's role play. I'm having these conversations. What am I doing well? What am I doing, poorly? What could I improve upon? And use somebody else that's literally trying to cut their teeth at the same time to help you improve what you're doing. You may not have that mentor. I hope you do. But for a lot of folks out there, I've heard some stories already just in starting this portal that there are folks that are figuring it out on their own. So there's advisors here to help you one way or the other. The next question that's in here might be a good last one because it's a little bit of a um, pointing out something that I said at the beginning we have not yet fully addressed. So they did a good job and pointing this out. The question was, he said, Colin, you said at the beginning of this call that what PJ's been doing is going to lead to growth. We haven't really talked about growth. I think you've inferred some pieces with it, but they did accurately point out that we hadn't focused on what you've said and how it can lead to growth. So why don't we end on the topic of using what you've done and how does it help you grow your business?
yeah. I'm most comfortable growing organically. If it was up to me, I wouldn't even care about buying any practices. I just want to keep replicating my clients. The way I've done that, again, this is my philosophy. Service the hell out of your people to the point where they can't help but tell other people about you. Connect on a higher level. So that's why for me, the touches, the contacts help, and then ask. Be confident enough. You've earned the ask. Do you like what we're doing? Is there anything we can do better? Is there anyone you think that could benefit from what we're doing?
Yeah.
If so, we'd love to meet them.
And
And
you feel like those asks because you've had so many touch points and so many pieces. I'm assuming that they've been effective recently, and that has led to tangible growth and measurable growth for you in the practice.
yes, I'm very competitive among my peers here. We had I remember it was 2018 when we started this, and I said, look, we're going to roll out this service model. I think it's going to work. Nick challenged me. I said, I'm going to get 15 million in net flows. He's like, that's a little aggressive. So I did 20 that year. And nothing else other than saying what I just said.
Yeah.
But activity drives growth. So have accountability with someone in your office. And if you know that in order to get 2 new prospect meetings, I have to talk to 10 new people, or I have to ask 50 people, then make that your focus point for your activity that week. We focus too much on results and not enough about activity.
Yeah.
If you focus on your activity, the results will follow.
Yeah.
You're just focused on the results, nothing's going to change because you're just looking at what happened.
We hear that in sports all the time, right? If you focus on process, the results will follow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good advice.
Yeah.
My email box is open, so the queue, it looks like we cleared the queue, which is great. I think people wanted to talk about seats on the bus and training younger advisors and how you spend your time, which were all great questions from this. I just really want to appreciate how much you've shared, right? And it's what has made you successful as you talk about bringing in $20 million of net new assets by servicing your clients. What I'd ask everybody on the call to understand is there's no secret sauce, right? He's not telling you work with me and I do. No, follow some of what you've learned today, follow the process, create your why, execute that, service the heck out of your clients, do the work, put in the calls. And PJ's right, when the markets are great, don't call those times. I mean, you certainly have to call anyways, but call when it's not. Add an extra call when the markets are bad, right? Add an extra call when fear and volatility is spiking because, of course, everybody wants to hear someone's voice that, hey, I'm here for you. I'm ready to help you. That's when clients need the most extra help, right? The most time with you and your voice. But but learn from each other. And so, PJ, you took time out of your day. You walked through how you operate your practice, and you've done all of it to help other people with no expectation of anything in return. And that is by default exactly what this network was meant to do. And you sharing that today has been unbelievable. So, on behalf of everybody on the call, thank you for taking the time. I hope that folks that get to watch this later on and come back and do that learn as much as we did live on the call. So, I'm going to end the same way we started. A thank you to you. A thank you to the advisors who are on the call. Please use it and give us feedback. We are going to solicit your feedback by using a survey afterwards. I know what you think. Most people don't fill out the surveys. We can't change this if we don't hear from you. So most of you aren't shy to email me or text me or other things, but use the survey, organize and tell us what we can do differently. And we'd love to continue to roll out these types of things. And last shameless plug, this is the type of presentation you're going to see in Las Vegas in November. So PJ himself, peers, folks from his team, whomever, but just that type of a presentation, talking about how someone does something well. And we're going to do about 8 or 10 of those sessions in person with a chance to have a cocktail later on in the evening and say, okay, now give me a little bit more on that investment philosophy. Give me a little bit more on specifically training those younger advisors, et cetera. So if you can be there in November, please be there, right? We think that there's a great opportunity to add this in-person layer because it's important. So, PJ, thank you. All the folks on the call, thank you. And we'll see you next month for
Great
another
seeing you,
Advisor
Bill. Thank you.
Roundtable. Thanks, bud. All right.